Hey guys, how's it going? Justin here with Keystone Mountain Outdoors. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, what we're going to be talking all about is the Forster Co-Ax reloading press. The Forster Co-Ax reloading press is a pretty cool press, and a lot of the coolness of the Co-Ax lies in its name. Co-Ax is short for coaxial. Essentially what that means in reloading terms is the Co-Ax press has a shell holder system that's allowed to float, that's called left and right, east and west, and the die body system is floating as well. It allows it to float, let's call it north and south or up and down. So what those two planes are able to do is to kind of coaxially align, and what it does is it tends to aid in overall concentration of ammunition. The Co-Ax press was designed back in the 1960s by a company named Bonanza, as well as in conjunction with some U.S. military marksmanship units. They were looking for a reloading press that would aid in their concentration of their ammunition for their long-range shooting efforts. Now, the Co-Ax press was designed by Bonanza, and then somewhere in the 80s, I believe, Forster actually acquired the rights to it, or bought Bonanza. I don't know the full story there. I just know that the Forster Co-Ax press and the Bonanza Co-Ax press, for the most part, are the same. Forster has since made some evolutionary changes over the years, but for the most part, the Co-Ax has stayed fairly true to its roots. It's a very simple, very well-made press that gives you a lot of leverage. Forster claims that the Co-Ax press gives you about 3 times the leverage of your traditional C-frame press. Now, I've used my Co-Ax press for many, many years. I've used it to load a lot of calibers, but the primary calibers that I load on my Co-Ax press anymore would be 6.5 Creedmoor and .308. However, I have loaded a lot of other stuff on there. The really cool thing that appeals to me about the Co-Ax press is it complements my reloading setup very well. I'm a big fan of my Dillon XL750. It's a 5-station progressive reloading press. I'm able to really crank out 223 and 9mm on there very fast, very efficiently, and get pretty quality ammunition. The drawback to my Dillon 750 is the fact that caliber conversions for it to switch calibers are kind of expensive, and also it takes a little bit of time to switch all that stuff over. So generally, if I'm just going to load 100 or so rounds, I would rather just load it on my single stage press. Now that's where the Co-Ax comes into play. Not only does the Co-Ax produce really high quality ammunition, but the way the shell holder system is, it's rather universal in nature. So at least for all the calibers that I reload, .308, 6.5 Creedmoor, 9mm, 300 Win Mag, 45 ACP, 300 Blackout, all those calibers, I don't really feel the need to switch over the jaws. So my jaws are pretty much the same, and then if you look at the die body system, the way it retains it, you literally just slide your dies in and out. So it's virtually free to change calibers, virtually free, and takes about 2 seconds to switch dies to change calibers on the Co-Ax press. So it really kind of complements my Dillon very well. Also, the Co-Ax press is known to produce some pretty high quality ammunition. Now, I feel like we can't do the video without talking about some negatives about the Co-Ax press as well. Some of the negative things that I would look at as far as the Co-Ax press would be, number one, price and availability. The Co-Ax press is generally one of the more expensive single-stage presses that you could get. If you're lucky enough to find one of the Co-Axes, they're generally in the ballpark of $300 to $400. However, the price seems to be going up each year. Another drawback is the availability. For the most part, Co-Ax presses can be very hard to find. Every once in a while, there are stretches of times where people will have Co-Ax presses in stock and they'll be sitting on them for a little bit. But for the most part, as soon as Co-Ax presses become available, they sell out within a couple weeks, couple months. So Co-Ax presses, depending on when you're watching this video, can be very hard to come by and also be very expensive. Another drawback to a Co-Ax press, I would say, is the priming system. It's not a huge deal in my opinion, because whenever I'm loading on a single stage, I tend to prefer to prime off the press, but the priming system on the Co-Ax press leaves a little bit to be desired. The way it is, the placement of it, it's a little bit awkward, and while I like the fact that it comes with it and it gives you the option for those that want to use it, it doesn't get in my way. I never use the priming system on it. I prefer to hand prime, but it's something that I'm going to give it a little bit of a negative there, at least for most people that would want to prime on press. I feel something like a Redding T7, for example, and the slide bar priming system that you could get for that is much more efficient if you really want to prime on the press. Talking about the Redding T7, I feel like that's a really good comparison to make to the Co-Ax press. Well, they're completely different. We're talking about a single stage press versus a turret, They're both two really high quality presses made by very reputable manufacturers, and they're produced to pretty high quality standards. Some people will argue that the Co-Ax press is going to give you a little bit better ammunition in terms of the overall concentricity. And while I can't speak to that, what I can say is that I've shot a lot of rounds that have been loaded on a Redding T7, and I haven't ever came away saying, oh geez, that ammunition wasn't concentric enough. Redding T7 produces really high quality ammunition. The big kind of selling point that I would give you to the Co-Ax press is the fact that it has that universal shell holder system, so you don't have to worry about buying or keeping track of shell holders, as well as the fact that you have theoretically unlimited die setups. With a Redding T7, you have 7 stations, so there's 7 dies that you could set up and leave set. Of course, you could buy different turrets, but then you have to take the time and spend the money to switch those out. With the Forster Co-Ax, you could theoretically have hundreds of dies set up and just swap them in and out to change dies. Now, where I would give the Redding T7 the slight advantage would be, say you're seating a bullet and then you immediately want to rotate the turret and crimp it. That's going to be a lot faster to do on a Redding T7 turret style press versus on a Co-Ax press. You're not going to want to seat your bullet, slide your die out, slide your crimp die in, and then run that. You're pretty much going to want to work the Co-Ax press one stage at a time, like a single stage is designed. And the way I like to do it is I load off of a loading block. So I'll go through, I'll size all my bullets, I'll throw all my charges, then I'll seat all my bullets, and then if I want to crimp my bullets, I'll switch out the die again and crimp a third time. So I'll run through 3 times. But for the most part, most of the ammunition that I load on the Co-Ax, I don't worry about crimping it. But, you know, that is something that I felt a need to bring up. Like I said, some people will argue that the Co-Ax is going to give you a little bit better ammunition because a turret press is going to have a little bit of deflection in it. Like I said, I've shot some pretty high quality ammunition that's been loaded off of a T7, and I think they're good presses. They're both kind of, it's one of those 6 in one, half dozen in the other. They're both really good presses. It kind of depends on what you want, what you need, what you're looking for. Another press that I would like to bring up to kind of compare to the Forster Co-Ax would be the Frankfurt Arsenal M press. I'm a big fan of a lot of stuff that Frankfurt Arsenal does. However, in the case of their M press, it seems like a Chinese copy of the Co-Ax. And I like some things that they did, and I don't like some other things that they did. For example, I like the fact that it comes with a lighting system from the factory. I feel like that's a huge benefit to a reloading press, and I add it to all of mine. However, that's a $30 add-on to a Co-Ax. If we look at the Frankfurt Arsenal M press, probably the biggest drawback, other than the fact that it's a Chinese copy, would be the fact that they switched the die lock ring system. So on the case of the Forster Co-Ax, you're able to use standard lock rings. I find that the Forster and the Hornady lock rings seem to work the best from my experience, but you could use many others. I've used Lee, I've used RCBS, I've used Redding, stuff like that. Where the Frankfurt Arsenal goes, they have this proprietary big block lock ring that they utilize. Not only is it expensive and it's another part that you have to buy, whenever you install that on your dies and you go to put them back in the box, most of the time they're not going to fit back in their original boxes. So in my opinion, that's kind of a con. It's something else you have to buy, and it's something else that you have to worry about storing. With the Co-Ax press, there's really no need for that. So, you know, you could make your own decision as far as the Co-Ax versus the M press. The M press is significantly cheaper in many instances and seems to be a lot easier to find. And there's pros and cons. If you're more interested in the M press, I would strongly suggest going over to Johnny Reloading Bench's channel and checking out his video on it. He goes in very deep detail on it and talks about a lot of cool stuff and has a lot more information and experience with it than me. So to kind of wrap up and to kind of summarize the Co-Ax press, I think the Co-Ax press is a really good press. If you're looking for a high quality single stage press that's going to last a lifetime, that is going to be built like a brick shit house, that is going to be a well-made quality piece of gear, I think the Co-Ax press is something worth looking into. I'm certainly happy with mine, and I think it's a really good press. I would strongly recommend it. Even if the Co-Ax was a $450 press, I would still pay the $450 for it. I think it's a really well-made press. I really like everything about it. It's a fast press to use, especially for those guys, something we didn't hit on. The guys that like to go through and decap all their pistol brass, you could go through and you could really kind of punch out a lot of decapping on a Co-Ax press. If you really want to run that thing fast and you get good and you get consistent with it, you can run a Co-Ax pretty fast. And like I said, produces good quality ammunition. It's cheap to do caliber conversions, super quick, super easy, and all around a good press. Guys, that's all I got for you guys. If you guys have any questions or would like to add anything, feel free to post those down in the comment section below. As always, guys, remember to train hard, shoot fast, and most importantly, be safe. God bless.